Negotiation. Well, you know what? Human beings, not only human beings, normally living things, okay, especially human beings are being born with certain what we call basic skill in order to survive, including creativity, including problem solving, and now we are getting into negotiation. So remember, when you were small, your parent bring you to the supermarket, and then as a children, you would like to grab everything, especially toys. Even though you already have a ton of toys at home, you still want more. And what happened when you didn't get what you want? Okay, so normally children will start crying very loudly. Okay, so in order not to get embarrassed, people start looking at you. Then you at the end of the day, you give away. Okay, so in such a way that child is already win. Okay, he used that kind of things in order to get something. So he will repeat again and again. And that is the behavior of the children. And that is example of negotiation. Okay, so actually we are living in the world of negotiation because every day, basically, without we knowing the terminology or the whole thing about negotiation, we already use that thing. That's why I say we are being born with that kind of skill, except that you need to polish if you want to go into the detail, or if you want to use that thing as your career or profession, then you need to learn more. Okay, in everyday life you negotiate. In business, basically, people use this thing a lot. You want to get a deal with your business partner because you cannot, what in doing business, you cannot survive alone. You need everybody. You need the supplier, you need the for instance, you are a contractor, you need the subcontractor, supplier. You negotiate with the client, etc., etc., in order to strike a deal. Then with your boss, because we all working, for instance, boss will give you all kind of assignment or deadline, or there are terms and condition with regard to your work. Always, oftentimes, you try to negotiate. Let's say your boss asks you to relocate, or give you some kind of assignment that you need to submit within 2 days. Then you try to negotiate so that basically to get a more lenient task assignment, or more lenient on the deadline. We always do that anyway. And then with your workmate, with your colleague, for instance, you are working with, in a group while studying. So you also negotiate while doing certain project or works, because everybody want to get less work anyway. Okay. And then you also negotiate with partner. Partner mean your friend, your wife, even your family members, in order to get something. Okay, so what is negotiation? Negotiation is a give and take decision making in order to achieve a certain agreement. Okay, normally when you negotiate, there must be something that you do not agree upon. So at the end of the day, you want to make a deal. All right. So to reach an agreement. So why do we negotiate? Simply the reason is to reach an agreement on what? For instance, in buying and selling. So you go to the shop, or you want to get the best price, and of course the seller want to get the best price also. So you negotiate. And then to solve problem, this is a bigger thing because conflict. Okay, normally negotiation, some of the terminology being used is basically conflict resolution, because negotiation is about resolving something. Okay, and if you notice in terms of buying and selling, let's say in this you have been using some kind of e-business platform, let's say Lazada, Shopee, or whatnot. In Lazada and Shopee, you do not negotiate. with the what we call seller. But if you are familiar with Alibaba platform, Alibaba basically you can negotiate with the seller because they are selling things on bulk basis. You can communicate with the seller until you reach certain agreement for the final price. That is normally what the platform like Alibaba do, because different platform cater for different kind of customer. All right. So what is negotiation? It's basically again discussion between two people, a group of people, or sometimes that person could represent organization, company, nation. He might not be negotiating on individual basis to reach on certain agreement for the benefit of perhaps both party. That is the best. Okay. In layman term or in our normal terminology, so we use bargaining. Perhaps when we say bargaining, you can relate because every day you bargain things. You cannot bargain things when you go to the Aeon supermarket because supermarket is basically they already have a fixed price product. But if you go to so-called pasar malam, if you go to all kind of bazaar, if you have been a tourist to many countries, then normally a lot of product that you buy you can negotiate. So the seller normally put the prices basically maybe a few times more. If you know how to bargain, you will get a good deal. Okay, that is basically negotiation. You bargain things in order to come up with a certain agreement, and of course most of the time you might not get what you want. If that is the situation, a compromise is the best thing. Compromise meaning to say you demand certain things, but you couldn't get that 100%. So you reduce a little bit. So at the end of the day, that's what we call give and take situation. And then this is another aspect of other than trying to reach agreement on selling thing on product. The worst scenario is basically conflict. Let's say you have conflict, dispute on certain matters, especially with regard to nation. That is even worse. And all the nation normally they will have some kind of conflict with the neighbors, border conflict. We in Malaysia also we do have problem with Singapore, Thailand, and Indonesia because when we live as a neighbor, there will always be problems with regard to the issue of borders. Okay, in Singapore, for instance, we have been having issue like island dispute. We try to bargain. At the end of the day, we cannot reach agreement, and then okay, we thought that okay, just bring this thing to the International Court of Justice. But at the end of the day, it didn't turn out to be for us. It's against us. Oh, that is the decision. When you go to the international court, the decision is final. So what can you do? Okay. So you do not want things bothering your mind. So that's why you go into negotiation in order to solve problem once and for all. Let's say you stay in the hostel with your friend, two person in a room, for instance. For sure, you have problem issue with certain things. Sometimes you tend to shy out, not to voice your disagreement because in order to what we call try to please your friend. But at the end of the day, this thing will keep going on, and you are going to be stressed out because you did not solve this thing once and for all. Okay, if you have open mind, or even your friend have open mind, perhaps you can engage into some kind of discussion in order to resolve some things. Otherwise, you better move out of the room because you cannot negotiate. What else to do? All right. Okay. So negotiation skill can be learned Even though we were born with some kind of negotiation skill, but that could be considered as basic skill. You need to polish those skills. Okay, you need to learn to go for courses, and you need to basically practice those things. At the end of the day, you can be called negotiator. And you know what? There are people who make a living becoming negotiator. Either they could be negotiated based on the nation. For instance, Henry Kissinger, the United States Secretary of State, he was very famous for the ability to negotiate things. When he go to certain country, he just voice out on certain thing. Oh my God, a lot of people just simply cannot take it. At the end of the day, he could win because he had the ability to negotiate all kind of skill, what the good negotiator is supposed to be. But in certain ways, in certain what we call practice, negotiator can be used, can be utilized in organization or company in order to negotiate business deal. There are people who basically being called open by certain organization to negotiate for the company. Okay, they are being paid certain fees. So that kind of person must have some kind of ability. They must have learned certain things. Normally, they should be able to talk effectively. Good, be very good in English. Normally, lawyer will do that. Know something about the law and regulation, and know a little bit of marketing, and then psychology, etc., in order to negotiate things. And you see, negotiation can be used in many things: business, government, legal proceeding. You might have heard that in court cases, after going through court cases for many months, a year, or whatever, at the end of the day, both party reach an agreement, settle out of the court. That is basically, instead of going through the court cases again and again, will take a few years to settle. Then certain party can negotiate, deal, make a deal. I do not know. Normally, the deal will not be disclosed to the public. Okay, they must be paying something, whatever things. That is example of negotiation, and can be used in nation. For instance, Donald Trump has met this Kim Jong Un a few times. Okay, normally U.S. president will not met this guy for many years, but suddenly this Donald Trump have brave enough to met this guy. Okay, they did the meeting a few times. I think way back in Singapore, China, etc. Well, what was the issue? Well, as U.S. is always trying to be a winner in what we call nuclear arm or race. They do not want any other country to have that kind of weapon other than they themselves. So they negotiate. Okay, so that the North Korea, for instance, try to disarm their nuclear warhead or whatever. Okay, but it didn't turn out to be in the U.S. What we call agreement for the time being. But again, U.S. has been using a lot of dirty tactic anyway. Uh, before they go into negotiation, the U.S. tactic always basically they will put a pressure on the economy. They play around with that nation currency, and basically they press the economy, currency, whatever they think that they can press on that nation, until at the end of the day you have to agree with them. Okay, that is the bad tactic that US has been using in many countries like Iran, North Korea, and many other countries. All right, and you notice that in marriage and divorce also, when people go into the divorce kind of stage, at the end of the day, they need to negotiate, especially when they have a lot of money. So they need to settle things. Okay. And in everyday life, we also use that thing. We negotiate with our children, with our friends, with even our neighbors, whatever things. Okay, that is a very common skill that we use every day. So negotiation, the element of negotiation basically consists of process, behavior, and substance. Process, okay? Process consists of technique and strategy. If you want to negotiate, you need to utilize some kind of strategy, because for everybody mind, they thought that the agenda is to win, okay? But not necessarily. At the end of the day, you want to reach certain agreement. That is the basic objective anyway. Then behavior. When you negotiate, you need to interact with the other party. So the way you behave basically have a lot of influence to the outcome of negotiation. Sometimes when you behave in certain manner, people simply don't like to negotiate. That's it. That is the end of negotiation, because the behavior that you show, maybe you might use a rude some kind of wording, okay. And then at the end of the day, another one is basically you must have certain agenda. People do not negotiate if you do not have something to reach at the end of the day. You must basically have certain agenda, and then you negotiate within what you want to achieve. Okay, so negotiation basically involve a lot of communication, marketing, psychology, being assertive on certain things, and basically at the end of the day, you try to resolve whatever conflict or dispute that you have over a long period of time. So it is not everybody can do this job. You must have some kind of skill, okay? Otherwise, you will destroy that kind of negotiation instead of trying to reach into agreement. Okay, model of negotiation. There are a few model. One is what we call win-win model. Okay, win-win situation. So perhaps this is what people would like to have at the end of the negotiation. Okay, but again, the issue is that we might not have a win all the way. So we might basically have to compromise. That would be a better situation, okay? Because people do not want to let go what they thought that uh, they have. And then another one, win-lose model, okay? Win-lose model in the case of the one that I mentioned, US and other country. So it looks like at the end of the day, US is the one that win, and the other country basically is the one that lose. What to do? Because they are a very big nation. They have influence on many things. Okay, so similarly, the one that we have in with regard to certain island dispute with Singapore. So at the end of the day, we are the one that lose. Okay, and then lose model. Okay, lose model basically no party benefited from that kind of discussion. This example, let's say you have something in mind that certain model of computer or handphone that you like to buy. You had been eyeing for that model for very long time, and then one day you go to the shop, and then oh, you look at, oh, there is a model that you want, and then you start asking the price, and then the seller will start giving the price, and then you start to bargain the price. Okay, your own price. That seller also have their own price, and then you and the seller try to negotiate. At the end of the day, the seller will give you one last price, for instance. But having said that, you might not basically agree to buy. You might want to basically just simply walk away. So in this situation, you didn't get the product that you want, and then the seller also didn't do not basically didn't sell anything. It's just a matter of discussion. That is example of lose-lose model. Maybe maybe people use that kind of exercise in order to just simply know what is the range or the price that the seller can go. So with that kind of information, for instance, let's say you decide to purchase that product, maybe you hold on and start trying to look around for that product maybe next week or next month, then basically you know the range so that you can negotiate with other seller. You might not want to go to that the same seller anymore because otherwise that guy will know you. So that is example. And the last one, the red pack. A red pack model is normally being used a lot in a formal kind of negotiation between countries or business in business. You might have heard of a certain trade negotiation between nation or between many nation. Sometimes certain nation do attend certain summit. They call it example Kuala Lumpur summit, Bali summit, or whatever summit that they held in certain countries. So at the end of the day of the summit, normally the leader will get together and sign on certain agreement. Okay, so that kind of agreement have gone through this kind of process, red pack. So normally that kind of trade agreement that day is only meant for the leaders to basically meet in order to sign to just pen down on the final agreement. But that kind of negotiation has been going on for many months or even years before through so-called representative or negotiator that belong to each countries. Remember, you remember that a few years back, we do have a big thing, AFTA. Okay, that is what we call trade kind of agreement between U.S. big nation, U.S., Japan, and certain countries, including Malaysia. Okay, that country trying to basically come up with certain trade agreement that you can basically go across boundary within the agreed countries. You can trade freely. Before, we do have regulation that you cannot go into certain countries unless you have some kind of trade agreement, because trade agreement will let the flow of certain good into country easily, and then they might have agree on what kind of tax to be what we call you don't impose certain tax on certain thing, whatever things. Okay, and then we thought that it was okay with that after. And then if you remember, even our ministry and the top government officer have been going through all kind of agency to explain to the people what AFTA is all about, because a lot of people complain about AFTA. At the end of the day, the winner could be a most advanced country compared to us. Okay, but at the end of the day, that thing was being scrapped due to the fact that Donald Trump, when he was campaigning for the presidency, one of his main campaign point, he said, if I won this presidency, I will scrap this after. And at the end of the day, he won the American president, and he did scrap those things. So because of that, thanks God, that thing didn't materialize. Maybe it was for our own good. Okay, then it was scrapped. Even though the negotiation was going on, I think it was a few years, even before they basically could agree on certain things. But at the end of the day, it was being scrapped. Okay, all right, and then okay, condition for negotiation. When you want to negotiate things, you must basically identify who are the party willing to participate. In the case of you want to negotiate the trade agreement, which country? Not every country in this world basically would like to participate. Okay, so you must identify the parties or countries or whoever thing willing to participate. Interdependence, meaning to say you depend on the other party and that party depend on you. Otherwise, there is no point to negotiate because that party basically don't need your decision anyway. Okay, so both party must depend on each other, readiness to negotiate, whether you agree or not, you are ready or not. Because in order to negotiate, you must have a lot of things in hand, information, facts and figures, what to argue. If you are not ready, then basically don't go for negotiation yet. Just postpone until you are fully ready. Mean of influence, the ability to influence the decision, and then make sure you come to agreement on certain issue or interests. Okay, willing to settle, meaning to say after you negotiate, both party they will abide by the decision. If you are not willing to follow the agreement, then there is no point to negotiate. Unpredictability of outcome, of course, when you go into negotiation, you cannot predict the outcome yet. If you already know the outcome, then there is no point to negotiate. Okay, and then sense of urgency and deadline. Why do you need to negotiate? Because you need that thing. Let's say you as a contractor, uh, example, you are getting a project. The project will start in next 2 months. So basically, you need to negotiate with the supplier, okay, to get a certain price. Otherwise, you are going to get a late delivery of material. So because it is urgency, otherwise you don't have to negotiate yet because the delivery of material is not going to come in the next 2 months. Okay, you can wait for a certain time anyway, and then no major psychological barrier to settlement. There is no obstacle, so you can basically fulfill the decision. Issue must be negotiable. You do not basically encroach. For instance, when you negotiate between a country, for instance, there are certain things that the country cannot let go. You simply cannot touch on certain issue. So you do not negotiate based on sensitive issue. Okay, so make sure that the issue that you can negotiate or talk or disagree is a issue that you can basically give and take. Okay, don't go for the sensitive issue. The people must have the authority to decide, meaning to say negotiator or people who represent you, when they do the talking inside the room, negotiation room, they basically must be able to make decision on behalf of the organization. If, for instance, they will keep saying, oh, hold on, I need to call my boss. So what is the point? Because you cannot reach the agreement. Normally, during that negotiation time period, you need to give decision. So you must be able have the ability to basically say something. Willingness to compromise. Okay, so perhaps everybody want to win in any negotiation. So winning could not be 100% guaranteed based on all the things that you want. So you need to compromise. Compromise could be the best thing. Compromise meaning to say give and take situation. Okay, you might not get 100% of what you want, so 70% could be good enough. Or even you get half of those things that you bargain for, that is still better than you get zero. And then external factor or external or internal factor that favorable towards settlement. For instance, let's say in this COVID, let's say you negotiate with somebody in terms of trying to get some kind of product, but at the end of the day, because due to this COVID-19, all the production are being stopped. So the COVID-19 basically forced the supplying agency not being able to deliver on time. That is example of external factors. Okay, so all external or internal. Sometimes internal could be due to what we call shareholder. In any organization, there could be shareholder that against certain decision. Okay, you must clear those things first, and then resources to negotiate. Okay, negotiation is basically sometimes it is very tiring process. You need to have a place where you have to negotiate. You need to have some kind of people, tool, equipment that basically help you, because sometimes you need to have all kind of statistic figures, all kind of data that will support you in order to make a better deal. Okay, negotiation process. Okay, first thing first, preparation. Second, discussion. Third, clarification and goal. Negotiation toward win-win situation, and then close with agreement. First, you need to be prepared. Okay, in terms of what? You need to know the strength and weaknesses of each other, especially your opponent. Okay, otherwise you cannot strike a balance between what you want and what basically the other party want. Okay, and then setting objective. What are the goal that you want at the end of the negotiation? And second is intense discussion, because negotiation is all about discussion. You communicate, you give your opinion, you argue, and then you must be able to listen. Not only that you do the talking, but most of the time you need to listen. People would like to listen when other people talk. Not only you do the talking. People do not like that kind of situation where you do all the talking all the time. People sometimes would like to you to listen to their views as well, and then clarifying on certain matters, and perhaps all the things that bother your mind should be clear during the discussion. You do not want to go back and then start thinking again. No, no, no. Everything should be done during the negotiation period or time. Okay. So whatever thing that you have in your mind, so you throw it away. You throw to the other party, so that other party can basically give opinion on based on what you are not clear on. And then clarifying goals, because sometimes when you negotiate, there could be list of things coming up. Okay, so you must have some kind of priority in terms of the list. Maybe out of 10 things that you want to negotiate or agree on, so perhaps the top three could be the priority. If you can get that thing clear, that would be good enough, whereas the other thing is just basically supplementary. Okay, so priority must be right. Otherwise, you might agree on something which is not very important, less important compared to the big things. Okay, maybe you can get distracted during the negotiation. At the end of the day, you agree on the less important thing compared to the critical items. Okay, so please be clear on common ground, and then negotiate toward win-win situation. Okay, at the end of the day, you must compromise. Both party basically would like to agree on certain things, and perhaps at the end of the negotiation, we would like both parties to be happy. That is the intention. That is the best negotiation that you can have. Okay, not only you go home happily, but the other party should feel the same. And at the end of the lastly, agreement. After you agree on certain thing, so you must perhaps put things on writing, because you never know. Because the only people who know is people in that room, negotiation room. The other people outside of the room do not know, because you might not be being allowed to record what kind of negotiation that you have. Okay, but you can come out with the draft negotiation agreement, so that basically agreement you can go through. At the end of the day, you pen down or basically you sign, so that everybody, both parties will not argue after they go back, because they might say, I didn't agree on that kind of term. How come? We already agree, and all kind of things are already being put on writing. That is the best, what we call formal negotiation. And remember, example, we do have a big issue in Malaysia. We have a big project. We call it ECRL, the rail system from the East Coast, Kelantan, Terengganu, Pahang, and goes into the Klang Valley. Okay, it's a big project that costs maybe 70 or even close to 100 billion last time during the previous administration. Then suddenly, the last government, not the current government, basically is taking over the government for after 60 years. Okay, we having the same government, and then the issue of high cost of the contract. Okay, so the first what we call reaction, the project was supposed to be stopped. That was the first reaction after the new government was being set up. Okay, because of the high costs. And then suddenly, then come another situation. If you learn about the construction contract, once you already agree on certain contract, you already sign agreement, and then the contract has been started going on, you simply cannot basically stop the project, even though there is a change of government. It's not as simple as that. Okay, even though there is a change in government, but the contract that has been signed the previous government, you should basically abide by the rule and regulation. That is the issue. So what if you stop the project and then the contracting party sue you? They have basically a very strong ground, even though the project might be stopped, but they can get the compensation. They might be very happy because at the end of the day, they don't have to do anything. They still can get money. So that is not for the government benefit. You basically pay something whereas you didn't get anything. That is not that is not the point actually. So at the end of the day, government was being forced to continue with that project, but luckily somehow they were able to basically negotiate based on the pricing. They We do not know exactly what kind of thing that they go through, but in order to cut down the cost, basically you can scope down. That is normally what people do. Yeah, you can basically scale down the cost with regard to putting a smaller scope. Cut here and there, for sure you basically can cut down the cost. Okay, so at the end of the day, the project was being agreed to continue. Okay, it was then continue. That is example of negotiation. Okay, negotiation between nation with regard to certain big project. And then negotiation technique and strategy. Okay, for instance, technique. When you want to go for negotiation, first thing first, you must get all the detail. The smallest detail that you can get, fact and figures, you must basically well versed. Otherwise, during the negotiation, you might be caught red-handed. Other party might argue on certain fact, whereas you do not know about that thing. That could be very embarrassing thing. Okay, so you must know all the details, and then the body. This is what we call the body language, body posture. When you negotiate, okay, you do not want to sit down in a lazy kind of on the sofa in front of watching TV and talk leisurely. You represent a nation or company where billion dollars involved. So your body posture, your body language must basically be aligned with what you are discussing, to show that you are really interested and focused on the things that you want to discuss. Okay, and then never keep things to yourself, meaning to say you have something in mind, but you didn't dare to put that thing in the discussion table during discussion. Maybe later on when you go back and then you start to argue on certain thing, that is not good. So during the discussion negotiation session, you let go everything that you have in mind so that other party can answer. Be patient listener. Okay, so most of the time you might want to talk because uh, you are thinking that when you do all the talking, you already win. That is not the situation. Okay, sometimes people, the other party, will basically don't like that kind of act because you try to win at all possible costs. You do not want to listen to others. That is very bad attitude. Okay, you must be a patient listener. You let people talk and listen, and then you agree on certain thing, but then you give your opinion. That will be a better way of negotiation. And then what? Be realistic. You do not want to negotiate or say thing which is out of the thing that every party or even you yourself can be achieved. Okay, must be something that both party can be agreed on, can be achievable within reasonable things. Don't be hurry to close a deal. And of course, your intention is to win, but sometimes you basically to try to rush things. You are not being patient enough. This is like what we call insurance agent. You know, sometimes insurance agent, when they get to you in order to sell their product, they would like to close the deal. Okay, I have a certain product which is very good to you. This COVID-19, whatever thing, do you need to protect your family and yourself? Okay, why don't you sign agreement? Suddenly you get caught red-handed because why? You just want to know what kind of product that guy is selling. You are not saying anything yet about agreed on that thing. But the insurance, this is what we call salesman, what we call strategy. Either you are selling so-called Kowe, the water filtration system, selling the used car, selling the insurance. That is always the concept. You want to get deal done very fast so that you can achieve your so-called KPI, and then you are very happy. So this month you are able to sell 10 insurance so that you can get a lot of commission. That is not the concept. Okay, please be patient, and then know where to compromise, know the boundary that you can give and take. Okay, and then communication is very important. So that guy who want to negotiate must have a good communication skill in the language that the negotiator basically talk. You do not want to sometime maybe you have watched a movie called Lost in Translation. There is a big movie, yeah. The heroine is I think the Judy Foster or something like that. Okay, you see, in that movie, Lost in Translation, when you use translator, this is what happened. That translator say something else, and then the other people assume different thing, and it caused a war between a nation because of the issue of miscommunication. All right, and then for third party, always better to sign a contract. Sign a contract meaning to say you put everything in writing. Once you finish your negotiation, in order for the both party not to argue later on, because sometimes you only represent, people pay you money, you might not be in that business or organization. So Mean to say, after you get your fees, you are gone. Okay, but what happened to the company? They have to go through this issue. So better put everything in writing. Negotiation strategy. Okay, set your goal very clear, and then alternative. What if this thing doesn't work? What kind of plan do you have? Where do you go after this? If, for instance, you are not being able to negotiate face to face, what kind of forum that you have? So in this case, we do have a lot of other thing that we call, either you can go to what we call mediator, adjudicator, and then you can go to International Court of Justice, whatever. That is a different level. Okay, that is what we call alternative. And then relationship between party that negotiate. Maybe you have a previous history negotiating with the same supplier. That would be sometimes can be used for your advantages or against your advantages. So it depends. And then expected outcome. What is the expected outcome out of this negotiation? What basically the result that you want to see? And then what if you fail? What if you win? What could be the consequence? Okay, to that person, to even your business or even a nation. And then power to negotiate. What kind of relationship with regard, what kind of power that person have that can influence certain decision. And for instance, now we do have a big war between US and China, okay, in terms of a trade and a trade barrier. Uh, for instance, China has been very advanced in coming up with the 5G technology, dominated by Huawei. And then suddenly, US tried to ban all kind of product or deal with Huawei, for instance. See, that negotiation has not been settled out yet. That is an example of. But the issue is that it is not as simple as US can strike a deal as easy as that, because China basically own a lot of resources with regard to rare earth. Okay, so a lot of electronics that the raw material for electronic computer, whatever thing that we use in the current technology, basically use raw earth, a rare earth that basically owned by China. 70% of the rare earth basically in China. So uh, China basically have something, they control certain resources. So America is basically it's not easy to basically to put certain sanction a certain thing, because China has a better position in terms of in order to negotiate certain things. And then what else? Willing to alter. Okay, so basically, when we negotiate, we need to really understand what kind of problem our competitor have. But perhaps certain people do not want to hear about the other party problem. Okay, I do not want to hear your problem. I only want to basically get what I want. That is not the cases. Sometimes if you understand the other party problem, perhaps you basically will come up with different strategy. Perhaps you will be more lenient on certain things, because at the end of the day, you do not want to get out of this negotiation session as maybe perhaps you are only one party which is very happy, the others basically not happy. Both parties should come out with a happy face, because you need to understand a certain party problem, not only you yourself. All right, and then okay, what is this thing? So we already mentioned about who are the party. We need to understand uh, who are the party that we are dealing with, what are their position. Sometimes you need to understand their position in terms of do they have different hierarchy of what we call decision making. Sometimes if you cannot make decision with this group of negotiator, you might want to go to a higher level. This is what normally business or nation normally do. Sometimes you cannot reach an agreement with a representative, because that representative sometimes always go by the books. Perhaps you want to go to the big boss directly, and then perhaps the big boss uh, might uh, be more lenient on certain thing. Perhaps he might be the person that understand the business very well. See, so you must know basically who are the party that you negotiate with in terms of the hierarchy. All right. So similarly, the past relationship we already mentioned. Do these people really want to work in the future? Okay. When you negotiate, especially, let's say you negotiate with the client or subcontractor or what we call supplier, especially with the client. You know the client will give you project after project and after project. So you know that this client is a big client. Let's say for the first project, you might want to negotiate the price. You go a little bit low, for instance, so that in anticipation that you will build up the relationship. So you will get a future. You now what you are doing basically, you are building trust with your client with the anticipation that you will get the other project. So if you get many projects from the same client, even though you do not put a big profit on all of the project, but certainly in a cumulative term, you will basically have a strong, what we call a longer business deal with that kind of client. So, you look at a scenario whether you are getting more project with the same client again and again. Okay. And then what are the interests, list of interests the other party have, so that you can negotiate within the interest of both party. Okay, once you know what they like, what basically they want from you, and then perhaps you can start bargaining on certain things. And then alternative forum, you see, I mentioned here arbitration, conciliation, mediation, a lot of avenue or forum. If you cannot negotiate directly, then you go to certain level, okay, where you can still reach certain agreement. Okay, not only this could be the dead end of your negotiation, because there are plan, there are other plan A, B, C, D, in order to reach certain agreement. And then the most important thing to keep questioning collaborator. What is this thing? We already mentioned. Okay, emotion. Emotion during negotiation. You see, negotiation can be divided into positive and negative emotion. Okay, so positive emotion will bring happiness to everybody, whereas negative emotion that you show will have a bad implication even during the negotiation, and at the end of the day will influence the result. Okay, perhaps during negotiation you would like to have a happy mood. Okay, even though you are not happy, you might be thinking on your personal thing, but when you go to certain negotiation session, please show everything positive, happy mood, because when you go with a very bad face, people are not going to be happy, and at the end of the day, you might not get what you want, and the other party also might not be willing to negotiate with you anymore. Okay, anger, don't basically show your anger. That's why being composed or remain patient is very important. Okay, if you basically go and then basically get mad very easily out of certain argument, that's it. People are not going to negotiate with you anymore. That's it. That is the end of negotiation. One need to be friendly. Okay, anger and friendly is basically the opposite way. Friendship. Sometimes basically the negotiator could be the friend of yours. So they might have a personal relationship with regard to certain thing, but please be professional. You are not negotiating your personal matters. You basically negotiate on behalf of organization or nation. So please get the issue of your personal thing out of the way. Okay. And then negotiation must be with a clear and tension-free mind, and then remain calm. Don't stress yourself at the time of negotiation. Avoid being clever. Okay. Sometimes you want to show that you are smart. People don't like smart people anyway. Okay. Try to be humble. That is the best attitude that will always work at all time. When you want to talk to somebody, being humble is always the best. Even though you already know things, you don't act like you are very smart. People don't like that kind of things. Okay. And then being positive, always have a positive mind, and then choose the emotional payment. What is the emotional payment? You can Google what is emotional payment mean. Emotional payment is something to do with when you go, when you meet somebody, you do not go directly start with the point that you want to negotiate. You basically praise people, you smile to that person, you basically ask, how are you doing, are you you do the what we call sweet talk. That is an example of small, the emotional payment, the sweet talk. Okay, do the sweet talk first, and then only you get into serious things that you want to discuss. Because people sometimes want people cool down, and then they are more willing to share things with you. Once you go directly to the point that negotiate, okay, you basically you miss something already. Okay, you must do the sweet talk with everybody that you meet. Ask them how they doing, have they got their breakfast, lunch, whatever thing. Ask about their children, whatever thing that make people uh, calm or what we call soothing their mind. That is what we call emotional payment. All right, barrier in negotiation. Okay, sometime when you want to negotiate, you are going to be facing with all kind of things. Okay, the issue of confrontation. Confrontation is always not good when it comes to negotiation. When you are in the mode of confrontation, basically you cannot reach an agreement. Okay, trying to win at all costs, that is not good also. Even though everybody want to win, but uh, again, the best kind of model is basically to compromise, give and take situation, because the nature of why people have to negotiate, because there are differences in opinion. There are things that you cannot agree on. So please have an open mind on something. Bias, meaning to say bias or prejudice on certain thing. You always blame on the other party. That is not good also. Aggressive behavior, which is not good. Personality based. You negotiate or you attack on personality. No, no, you do not attack on that person personality. Whether he looks like whatever thing, that is one thing. So you focus on the item or the agenda that you want to negotiate. Don't attack on your personality. That is not good. Okay. Price base. Sometimes when you negotiate, you want to lock a certain price. Let's say I want this price. I do not want the higher price than this than that. You do not want to listen to competitor argument. Okay, you must understand, if you want to get a certain price, sometimes that price is only come with the basic things. You many things that you cannot do if you just simply pay that kind of price. So certain item, it must come with some kind of accessory, it must come with the manual, it must come with the maintenance, whatever. When you add those things up, at the end of the day, the price must be higher than what you thought. Sometimes people simply say the basic price. So if you just simply want to get to the basic price immediately, that might not be good for you, because if you purchase something with that kind of thing, you might not be able to do a lot with that kind of product anyway. So you must be able to listen first what people want to tell you, and then only you understand, oh, okay. So it is like buying an printer. Sometimes people want to sell the printer at a very unreasonable price. You thought that you already win. Okay, you purchase a printer with a very cheap price, but you didn't know at the end of the day, you are going to pay the ink price for the rest of your life. So the price of the ink is more expensive the price of the printer itself. That is the issue. Okay, so you basically must know what are the things associated with all kind of the price. Neglect one side of problem. You must understand the other party problem. So let them tell you their problem. So perhaps you understand, oh, no wonder why they could not agree on certain price or certain thing, because they do have their own problem. Okay. Limitation. What are the limit to the thing that you can agree or not agree, the issues and whatnot? You must know the boundary that you can basically agree on. Time pressure. Okay, sometimes you are being pressured to strike a deal because the deadline is there already. Okay, maybe next year we are going to implement something, so we must strike a deal now. That is the issue. When you are given that kind of pressure, you might not get the best out of the deal. And then another delay tactic. Okay, sometimes people are trying to delay. Let's say negotiation basically will last for 1 day. So at 5, you must have some kind of agreement. So sometimes negotiator try to delay. Okay, they only wait at the last minute, and during the last hours, where everybody wanted to go back to the country where you need to take flight, whatever, then basically you hastily, okay, have to agree on thing that might not be the best thing. That is not good also. Okay, you must be aware of the delay tactic. And then lastly is about another decision maker. Okay, another decision maker, meaning to say, sometimes you have been agreeing based on certain term and condition. You have been doing that kind of negotiation for a very long time. Then suddenly somebody else are being put to replace you, and then suddenly all the thing that you have been working on has been changed. That is the issue. Okay, so for whatever reason, that guy might not know the whole history of what you have been doing. That is basically this is basically we call it destroy the intention, the main intention of negotiation. And lastly, in conclusion, okay, in conclusion, negotiation basically is the discussion between two parties, could be individual, that individual could represent himself or organization, company, nation, whatever, or group, in order to reach certain agreement. Okay, there are a few model of negotiation, And the best model is what we call win-win model, where both party basically come at a compromise level, and everybody walk out of the meeting session or negotiation session happy. They basically get something. Okay, that is the intention of negotiation in order to resolve certain conflict. That is the biggest thing. Okay, between a nation or between a person or whatever. And in everyday life, we as a individual, we use negotiation whether we realize it or not. In organization, negotiation is much more important, because whatever decision that you make can have a big impact on your company. It can cost your company billion of ringgit or dollars based on uh, what we call bad decision. Okay, you do not want to make bad decision. People will recognize you at the end of the year, at the end of history. People will always blame you because you are the one that basically make bad decision on behalf of your company. Okay, so that is the idea of what we call negotiation. All right.